بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق.
It's about what is urinalysis. Urinalysis is basically the analysis of the urine, and it is one of the common non-invasive painless method to determine various type of disorders, and it is part of the routine examination and usually prescribed by the physicians. The main purpose is to evaluate the general health condition of the patient. Secondly, to diagnose the suspected renal disease which were detected will be diagnosed by the urinalysis. And it is to detect urinary tract infection as on the basis of the presence of nitrite. Furthermore, it is a basic tool for the diagnosis and for the monitoring of the several metabolic disorders, and the example is the diabetes and the jaundice. Then there are certain conditions in which a special type of protein is present in the blood and which comes or which is excreted in the urine. Then on the basis of the presence of these myeloproteins, the condition is may be detected, which is called as plasma cells distress, by the presence of the several proteins in the urine. For the diagnosis of the pregnancy, again urine sample is taken and a human chorionic gonadotropin hormone is checked in the urine. If it is present, then it is the detection of the diagnosis of the pregnancy. The most common thing is among all these three purposes, the most common purpose is to diagnosis of the UTI, that is the urinary tract infection. And urinary tract infection is basically the infection of the urinary tract, which includes kidney, which includes bladder, and which includes urethra. So urinary tract infection is basically of two types: upper urinary tract infection and lower urinary tract infection. So bladder and urethra comes under the lower urinary tract infection, which is the cystitis and urethritis. And if the infection occurs in the whole kidney, then it is pyelonephritis. So whatever the case is that for the general diagnosis of the urinary tract infection, this test is usually recommended. This is the comparison of the different urine samples and their types according to their purposes. So random specimen and the morning specimen can be taken for any condition. FEME is the full examination, microscopic examination. So microscopic examination, and for FE random specimen is usually preferable. Clean catch midstream is the method in which we will discard first few ml of the urine, and then the rest of the urine is collected in the sterile container, and it is usually done for the culture performing of the urine sample. Then what changes will occur if we kept the urine sample for too much time? Then there will be the change in the pH, and this pH change is maybe due to the formation of the ammonia, and this ammonia is formed from the urea by enzyme urease producing bacteria produced from the bacteria, or there is a chance of formation of crystals due to the precipitation of phosphates and calcium present in the urine, which produces the turbidity in the urine. There may be a loss of the ketone bodies because they are volatile in nature. There may be the decrease in the concentration of the glucose as the time is more spent. Then there will be more glycolysis and utilization of the glucose by the cells and by the bacteria, and resulting in the decrease in the glucose level. There is a chance of the oxidation of bilirubin to biliverdin, and it causing the false negative result for the bilirubin. It means that initially bilirubin was present, and as the time passes, it converts into biliverdin. Now, if you test it, then you will not find the bilirubin. There may be chances of the oxidation of the urobilinogen or to urobilin, which is also again causing the false negative test for the urobilinogen. There may be bacterial proliferation, which initially not present and then get contaminated and start proliferating. There may be the disintegration of the cellular element, especially if the pH of the urine is alkaline and hypotonic, its osmolarity is not remain constant. So it is advisable that urine sample must be tested within 2 hours for the proper correct results. If time lapse is there and immediately urine analysis cannot be performed, then it is advisable to either refrigerate the sample, and it is the best method to preserve the urine and up to the 8 hours. However, we can use certain chemicals to preserve the sample up to 24 hours, and these chemicals are HCl, toluene, boric acid, thymol and formalin. HCl is basically used for the samples if we determine the concentration of certain hormones or neurotransmitter like adrenaline, noradrenaline, vanillin, mandelic acid and steroids. Toluene is basically toluene forms a thin layer over the surface, and it behaves as a physical barrier for the bacteria and air, and it inhibits the bacterial proliferation and prevents the chemical to deteriorate. Boric acid is a journal preservative, while thymol is behave like an antifungal and antibacterial nature. Formalin is an excellent chemical preservative, however, it will increase the cost of the urinalysis. What is the normal color of the urine? Usually, the color of the fresh urine is about pale yellow or amber, and basically it is due to the presence of the pigment which is called as urochrome. And there are certain traces of other substances as well. These are uroerythrin, urobilin, uroporphyrin, and coprophyrin, etc. And they contribute to the color of the urine. However, the color may indicate various conditions, which are those. In case of transparent urine, it may be the sign of the overhydration. A person may overhydration may drinking a little too much water. For example, if the requirement of the water intake is about 8 glasses, then maybe the person is taking 9 or 10 or 12 glasses per day. If it is pale yellow, it is normal. It is normal person, it is hydrated person. Transparent yellow, also normal. Dark yellow, it means it is normal, but the person needs to drink more water. In case of brownish or orange, it is the sign of dehydration or a possible sign of a liver disease. So if the color changes and it darkens, it means the water intake of the patient is less, as well as there is a chances of the liver disease. Pinkish red is the possibility of the presence of the blood in the urine, and it is maybe a possibility of any kidney disease, a UTI or a tumor. Blue or green is a very rare condition we observe in case of rare diseases, and in case of foamy is also a sign of kidney disease, in which it will observe that a turbidity is there. It may indicate that there may be some protein in the urine. Turbidity. Normally, the urine is clear. It is transparent. No cloudness is present in the urine. However, if it depends upon the cellular material, protein, and there may be chance that some salt of the urine may precipitate due to change in the pH. The turbidity or cloudiness may be due to the excessive protein in the urine, or there may be the crystallization of the salt upon the standing at room temperature. And if we want to check it, then we will add acids to evaluate the nature of the precipitate of the salt. If after addition of the acid precipitate dissolve, then we have what is urine volume. If the 24-hour sample is collected and the normal limit of the urine volume is about 600 to 2000 ml, depending upon the intake of the fluid and the diet of the person and the climatic nature. what will be the abnormalities if the limit is exceed from 2000 or from 2000 to 2500 ml per 24 hour, then the condition is called as polyuria. If the urine output is decreasing and the urine volume, mean volume is decreasing from 500 or 400 ml per 24 hours, it is called as oliguria. And if the urine volume is decreasing at so much level that it is decreases from 100 ml per 24 hours, then it is called as anuria. And there is a chance that there is a complete cessation or complete inhibition of the urine formation. What are the conditions regarding the polyuria? As the polyuria, the name indicates that in this the volume of the urine is increasing from the normal limit. So, in case of diabetic mellitus, in case of diabetes insipidus, in case of late stage chronic glomerulonephritis, drug-induced diuretics, consumption of the alcohol and compulsive polydyspepsia, the urine output is increasing. As we know about the diabetes mellitus is a condition in which there is a problem regarding to the glucose metabolism, and glucose exerts its effect as osmolarity increases, and it increases the urine osmolarity, and if it comes into urine, it also takes out the water from the body. In case of diabetes insipidus, it is a condition which is characterized by the large amount of dilute urine and increased thrust, and basically it is due to the problem in the hormone called as the hormone is vasopressin or antidiuretic hormone. So, diabetic insipidus, the water is eliminated from the kidney by the imbalance of the vasopressin. Either it is not present in the through the hypothalamus, or either periphery, it can not concentrate the nephron to concentrate the urine. Other problem is the compulsive polydyspepsia. Compulsive polydyspepsia is a psychogenic intake of the increased water intake by the psychological disturbed persons, and in this again in water intake is so much high, so it will lead to the increased urine output, and other problems are also there as it is a psychogenic problem. Then we have oliguria. The volume is less than the normal, and the condition associated with the oliguria is the fever. Condition associated with the oliguria are fever, diarrhea, severe edema, acute nephritis, and early stages of acute glomerulonephritis. Remember, early stages of acute glomerulonephritis result in the oliguria. However, chronic glomerulonephritis will lead to the increased water output, because now glomerulus become the meshwork of the glomerulus become loose, and now the water is easily come out from the glomerulonephritis into the urine. In case of cardiac failure and hypertension, as there is a reduced circulatory volume, then the total output is again decreases because cardiac output is not there. In case of anuria is basically occur in those conditions which is mainly associated with the kidney damage, and among them it is the most common one is the acute tubular necrosis. Acute tubular necrosis is a medical condition in which there is a death of the tubular epithelial cells, and this death of the cells result in the acute maybe due to the acute kidney injury, and some nephrotoxic drugs lead to the acute tubular necrosis. Another problem is the blood transfusion reaction, and in blood transfusion reaction, as the wrong blood will precipitate several type of reactions, among which the blood start coagulate in the blood vessels, and these will lead to the kidney damage, and this kidney damage again lead to the anuria. In case of surgical shock, if there is no cardiac output, again no cardiac output, then the volume of the urine becomes less, because heart has to pump the blood into the kidney with a certain level, with a certain pressure, otherwise it won't be able to filter it. Then we have bilateral renal stones. Bilateral renal stones are those that there is a condition in which stones are formed in the kidney urethra, and this stone is basically very painful and lead to the damage of the urethra as well, and it inhibits the transfer of the urine from the kidney to the bladder. Then we have sulfonamide therapy, and it has been reported that sulfonamide therapy is mainly associated with the kidney problem and kidney damage. What is the order of the urine sample? So as looking at the space, we can realize the order. So freshly ordered urine has a typically aromatic odor due to the volatile organic acids and ammonia. These, however, the odor may be changed in some condition, like in ketoacidosis, it becomes fruity due to the ketone bodies, and in case of ketonuria, there may be formation of phenylketonuria, which result in the mousy or musty type of odor. If there is an urinary tract infection with Proteus mirabilis, or there is a genetic disorder tyrosinemia, in which there is an accumulation of tyrosine in the urine, then it will lead to the fishy type of smell. Ammoniacal smell is more intense if there is infection with E. coli, or if the urine is old standing, and or the smell is become foul, then all these are indicative of the urinary tract infection. In case of sulfurous type of odor, then there is a chance of cystinuria, that is the accumulation of cystine in the urine. It is another genetic order in which there is accumulation of the cystine and amino acid in the urine. It is an inherited autosomal diseases. Okay? It is a type of amino acid urea. Now another point is the specific gravity. Specific gravity is basically the measure of the ability of a kidney, that how it concentrates the urine, and this ability is basically of the main characteristic that either the kidney has an ability to concentrate the urine or not. Comparison is basically made up with the water, distilled water at the required particular temperature. The normal limit is the 1.016 to 1.002 in 24 hours, slightly higher, and this slightly higher specific gravity as compared to water is basically due to the presence of the several solutes in the urine. It also depends upon the state of hydration of the patient, formation of the urea, and the amount of sodium present in the urine. As the solute concentration increases, then there is increase in the specific gravity. If the solute concentration is decreased, then there will be decrease in the specific gravity. Furthermore, if the temperature decreases, then it also decreases the specific gravity again. So urine that too concentrated means the kidney are not functioning properly, or that you are not drinking enough water. If urine that is not enough concentrated, and it means that there may be a diabetes insipidus, which causes the thirst and the excretion of the large amount of the diluted urine. So, in case of low specific gravity, there is a chance that there may be a compulsive polydipsia. As we discussed earlier, it is a psychogenic disorder in which the person water intake is increasing, and the person is going to be drink more and more continuous water. In case of diabetes insipidus, glomerulonephritis, and pyelonephritis. What is pyelonephritis? Pyelonephritis is the inflammation in the kidney. The whole kidney is inflamed, and it may be acute and it may be chronic one. So these are the conditions in which the specific gravity found to be low. Then there are certain conditions in which the specific gravity found to be high, and these are in case of severe dehydration, as there is no water or decreased water intake, it will lead to the high specific gravity. In case of nephrotic syndrome, due to the accumulation of the protein in the urea, the specific concentration of the solute increase, specific gravity increase. In case of diabetes mellitus, as there is glucose, it increases the osmolarity of the urine and it increases the water. And due to adrenal insufficiency, adrenal insufficiency is the inability of the adrenal gland to produce stress hormone and aldosterones. Due to these aldosterone, the person is unable to synthesize these hormones and lead to the excess of sodium in the urine. It cannot control the sodium. In case of congestive heart failure, as we discussed earlier, there is a decreased output, cardiac output, decreased blood volume to the urine, and decreased blood volume will lead to decreased urine output, and decreased urine output then lead to the increased specific gravity. In case of hepatic diseases, it is also observed that the specific gravity of the urine is changed, and in extrarenal water losses, either due to the fever, vomiting, and diarrhea, it also results in the high specific gravity. So it is a comparison. The terminology for the increase in the specific gravity is called as hyperstenuria, and hypostenuria is the decrease in the specific gravity. And another thing is there which is called as isothenuria. Isothenuria is basically a fixed specific gravity that is about 1.010, and it is basically due to the loss of the concentrating ability of the tissues, and it is mostly reported in case of end stage renal failure. How we will monitor the specific gravity? In the lab, we will not perform the specific gravity, rather we will measure we will take the dipstick and we will measure it. We will measure through a dipstick method. The specific gravity is generally measured by the urinometer, and it is a urinometer which you can see. It is a calibrated one, and you can see that this is the urinometer, a small bulb like having a mercury bulb at the bottom of the urinometer. What we will do, we will just take 50 ml of the urine and place this urinometer gently in the urine and let it float freely. This urinometer will get settled, and so that it will not touch the bottom, and it will also not touch the side of the cylinder. Then we will take the reading by considering the lower meniscus. As you can see that the lower meniscus should be checked of this liquid. This is the procedure कि इसमें हम इस तरह डिप कर देंगे, ठीक है. Then we will measure the specific gravity, and if there is the increase in temperature from the 25 degree centigrade, then we will decrease the 0.01, and if there is decrease the temperature from 25 degree centigrade, for example, to 20 to 16 degree, then we will add the 0.001. Another method for the measurement of the specific gravity is the refractometer procedure, and it is just for information. And what we will do is that we will take a drop of the urine sample and place it here, and a beam of light pass through the urine sample and measure the concentration of the solute present in the urine sample. It is a very quickly method. A digital refractometer is there which measure and show the results quickly. It is our most latest method. Another method is which we will use in our lab is the measurement of the concentration of iron in urine, and which correlates the color of the provided strip to the provided box of the urine reagent strip bottle. What happens? A polyelectrolyte will ionize the portion and it causes the change of the color of the indicator. The indicator present in the specific gravity boxes are the bromothiamol blue. Okay, you can see whatever the color of the urine after the dipping of the dipstick in the urine sample we will take out and we will compare the result to that. Then what is the pH? pH basically is the scale of the measuring the ability or acidity or alkalinity of the solution. Fresh urine is required for the estimation of the pH, and because upon standing urine becomes alkaline due to the loss of carbon dioxide and the production of ammonia from urea. So we remember that on standing the urine becomes alkaline. So normal urine value ranges from 4.6 to 8. However, normally it will found about 6.2 something. And it depends upon the diet, acid-base balance, and water balance and renal tubular function. And methods are basically we have 3 methods. We have 4 methods: litmus paper method, pH indicator paper, pH meter, and reagent strip method. Above 3 methods are the old one. We just go through them one by one. Initially, litmus paper method was used. We will take the litmus paper and dip in the urine. If blue litmus paper turns red, it means the urine has an acidic pH. If the red litmus paper turns blue, then it means the urine has an alkaline pH. Another sophisticated method was adopted was the pH indicator paper, just like this. And this pH indicator paper is that we will dip it and it will indicate the pH of the urine by measuring the color present on the whole paper. Then we have pH meter, which is basically pH meter is basically a meter, electrode containing meter, which detects the exact pH of the urine, and it is only reserved for the condition in which we require the exact pH. Reagent strip method is generally used in the lab, and the reagent area is basically impregnated with the bromothiamol blue and methyl red indicator on the paper strip, and it is dipped in the urine sample and the color change is compared with the color guide provided. Approximate pH is obtained. These are conditions in which the pH is altered. If the urine is acidic, it means there may be ketosis, ketone from body formation, or diabetes mellitus, or there is starvation, there may be fever, there may be urinary tract infection due to the E. coli, and the high protein diet may also result in the acidic urine. If the pH is alkaline, it means there is may be severe high vomiting, or the sample is kept on the more than 2 days, old sample. So, or there is a patient is suffering from chronic renal failure. There is the urinary tract infection, but this infection is basically due to the Proteus or Pseudomonas. So this is a differentiating point. If nitrite is positive and the pH is acidic, it means E. coli may be there. And if the pH is alkaline and nitrite is positive, it means that there is a chance of Proteus or Pseudomonas aeruginosa. Now next part will be chemical analysis of the urine. In our lab of the University of Karachi, we will perform 3 chemical tests by chemical method, and these are lab tests. For initially we will perform lab tests for bile. Bile salts are the salts of bile acid, folic and deoxyfolic acid, and lithochoric acid, and they are basically combined with glycerin or taurine to form complex salts or acids. Bile salts enter the small intestine through the bile duct, and they basically emulsify the fats and reduce the surface tension of the fats and droplets, so that enzymes, that is lipase, can break down it. So for the metabolism of the and for the absorption of the fats and lipids, bile is required. In the terminal ileum, bile salts are absorbed and enter in the bloodstream, from where they are taken up the liver and re-excreted in the bile, that is the enterohepatic circulation. So in the lab test for urine, we detected the urine in cases of obstructive jaundice. If there is an obstruction of the bile duct, then there is a chance of production of the jaundice, because accumulated bile salts and conjugated bilirubin re-aggregate into the blood from biliary canaliculi. That is, by the increased intrability of the pressure, they are excreted in the urine rather than excreted in the intestine. So the test used for the detection of the bile salt is the Hayes surface tension test, and the property of the bile is utilized. What is the property? The property is that they lower the surface tension of the fats and lipids. How this test is performed? We will take some fresh urine sample in a test tube or in a conical glass tube. The temperature of the urine should be at the room temperature. If it is refrigerated, then we will give some time to attain a room temperature. Then particle of sulfur is taken and sprinkled on the surface of the urine. If bile salts are present, the sulfur will sink to the bottom, because these bile cells lower the surface tension of the sulfur. If sulfur particles remain on the surface of the urine, then bile salts are absent. If the urine sample contains thymol as a preservative, it gives false positive results, because thymol also lower the surface tension of the urine. Then we have another lab method for the protein, and normally protein is not present in the urine, and kidney excrete the scant amount of the protein in the urine, about 150 mg per 24-hour urine. So in urine which is randomly given to the lab usually does not contain any amount of the urine, any amount of the protein. This can be a sign of which may indicate the proper functioning of the kidney. Turbidity in the urine on heating marks the presence of the protein, and the condition is called as proteinuria. And proteinuria refers to the protein excretion in the urine is more than 150 mg per 24 hours in adults. Normally, these are the normal mucoprotein which are secreted mainly by the ascending limb of loop of Henle. What are the causes of the protein? And the main cause of the protein is the damage to the glomerular nephritis. And glomerular proteinuria is basically due to the increased permeability of the glomerular capillary wall and nephrotic syndrome. Another type is the tubular proteinuria, and in this, due to the excretion of the low molecular weight proteins which are actively reabsorbed by the proximal convoluted tubules, and it is a condition associated with the tubules. Acute and chronic pyelonephritis, heavy metal poisoning, tuberculosis, interstitial nephritis, cystinosis, Fanconi syndrome, and rejection of the kidney transplants, all these conditions lead to the increased protein in the urine. Another causes is the overflow of the proteinuria, that is the immunoglobulin light chain or Bence-Jones protein. This is the hereditary disorder. Hemoglobin, intravascular hemolysis, myoglobin, skeletal muscle trauma, and lysosomes. That is the acute and myeloid leukemia. There is the presence of the protein in the urine. Another type is the hemodynamic proteinuria due to the high fever, hypertension, heavy, excessive congestive heart failure. Principle is that whenever there is the damage to the kidney vasculature, kidney structure, then there will be the proteinuria, whatever the type or whatever the condition of the kidney damage. How this test is performed? Principle is that we denature the protein and coagulate them upon heating, which produces a white cloud precipitate. We take a 5 ml test tube and fill it with 2/3 of the urine, and acidify it by adding 3 drops of the acetic acid if urine is alkaline. Then we will boil the upper portion for 2 minutes. If precipitation or turbidity appears, then we will add a few drops of 3% acetic acid. What will be the results? Result is that if there is no cloudiness, then the test is negative. If there is faint cloudiness, slightly the solution becomes turbid, then there are traces which are considered as less than 0.1 gram per deciliter. However, if cloudiness is without granularity, it's termed as 1 plus. If the cloudiness is associated with the granular appearance, then there will be 2 plus. And if the granular cloudiness becomes precipitate and flocculate, it becomes 3 plus. And if there is appearance of thick solid precipitation, there will be 4 plus. This is the condition. This is the, in this condition it is negative. It is slightly turbid. It is traces. This is plus 1. This is plus 2. This is plus 3. This is plus 4. Then we have lab test for the glucose. And for the glucose, we will perform Benedict test, which is a qualitative test. Presence of glucose can be confirmed by the urine, by the reagent, Benedict reagent that we had used in our biochemistry lab previously. As we know that the Benedict qualitative reagent, it is a qualitative test, contain copper sulfate. This copper sulfate is basically responsible for the reduction to the cuprous oxide, which producing the red precipitate. What is the method? We will take 0.5 ml of the urine in a test tube, and we will add Benedict reagent in the test tube and boil it for 2 minutes and allow to cool at room temperature, and note the color change or the production of the precipitate in the test tube. If there is no color change, then there will be no change from the blue color. It means the sample contains no glucose. If there are traces, then there is a green color without precipitation. If if there is green color with precipitation, it is termed as 1 plus. If there is brown precipitation, then it is classified, it is marked as 2 plus. If the brown precipitate becomes yellowish or orange type precipitate, then it is plus 3, about 1.5 grams per deciliter. And if it is brick red precipitate, it is the indicative of the dangerous condition, and it is termed as plus 4. This is the illustration of the picture. And first one is the absence of the glucose. Second is the traces of the glucose. Third one is the condition associated. It is basically plus 1 plus 2 condition. A brown color is not mentioned here, and it is the condition. Last one is the condition in which more glucose is present in the urine sample. Then another, what are the causes? As we know that the cause is the glucosuria with hyperglycemia. Hyperglycemia is in which the most common disease is the diabetes mellitus. However, acromegaly, Cushing syndrome, hyperthyroidism, pancreatic disease also responsible for the presence of the glucose in the urine. Besides these, there are certain non-endocrine disorders like central nervous disorder, liver diseases, in which blood glucose level is elevated, urine glucose level are elevated. Then we have certain drugs like adrenocorticotropic hormones, corticosteroids, thiazides, which increases the glucose in the urine by decreasing their reabsorption from the ascending leukophene. Then after a meal, there is a rapid intestinal absorption of the glucose, leading to the transient elevation of the blood glucose above renal threshold. However, if the person is suffering from gastrectomy or gastrojejunostomy or in hyperthyroidism, it is again unable to decrease its blood concentration. High elevated blood concentration lead to the presence of glucose in the urine. The best method is to take glucose tolerance test, which reveals a peak at 1 hour above the renal threshold. However, the fasting and the 2-hour glucose levels are usually remains normal. The condition in which there is a glucosuria without hyperglycemia, it means कि blood में concentration normal है but यूरिन में ज़्यादा है. और उसके पहले previous वाली जो condition थी, in case of autosomal disease, there is a chance that that glucosuria is present without hyperglycemia, and it is termed as renal glucosuria, and renal threshold is the highest glucose level in the blood at which glucose appear in the urine. So if the level of the blood sugar is 180 mg per deciliter, it is considered as renal threshold. If the blood concentration is above 180 mg per deciliter, then the thing is appear in the urine. However, a disorder is here in which there is no increase in the autosomal disorder, in which there is no increase of the blood sugar level up to 180 mg per deciliter, and the urine contains the glucose. This is a recessive disorder. This is all about the physical characteristic of the urine. The other video will be the dipstick method for the urinalysis, and the third video will be the microscopic determination of the urine.